All right. Good morning, folks. It's June 12th, 2024, and doing the state of the network today. I think Joey's going to cruise in and join a little bit later. He'd sent me a message about what we're doing or what he's doing. I think he had to bail a little bit early. Yeah, it'll be a little bit late. So let's see what's going on this week in DePIN. I'm seeing if you cruise over to the GK server, it's the easiest way to go find all this stuff. Is to go see like all the announcements that projects are making. I think one thing I'm seeing is that Demo is making more frequent announcements, and that's just cool to see in general that a project is saying, hey, we understand that our community wants to hear more. And we're going to do it. So that's super cool to see. Let's see what else happened. WeatherXM is, I think there's some interesting stuff happening over there on the community side where we're starting to see folks come in and say, hey, how do I contribute my knowledge in XYZ here, whether that's knowledge in security or knowledge in weather, or knowledge in whatever it is. And I think that's a good sign for a project that more and more folks are contributing. I know some of you guys have questions about whether, like when they're going to ship different things. I think all that stuff is pretty clear on the website, on the product pages, but I'm not dead sure. I went out this last week to go update my helium weather station, my helium WeatherXM station. And I think that's a good point. One of the questions I see a ton over in the WeatherXM Discord is which one is better, the Wi-Fi or the helium? And I think in general, for most people, the answer is this: if you have Wi-Fi, and if you have Wi-Fi connectivity to where your weather station will be, so it's within, let's say, 300 feet at the very outside, the Wi-Fi station is going to be better. You can push more information over that. There's because it's so close to wherever you are, usually your house. It's easier to go out and fiddle with a station if you need to. There's just a little bit. It's just easier to kind of maintain. Now, it's not going to be as true if you have the WeatherXM station at someone else's place, but in general, that's it. Whereas with the helium station, it has this massive advantage if you're going to put it in a remote place and you don't want to deal with Wi-Fi connectivity. It can go in places that Wi-Fi simply can't go. And that's where I've got my helium WeatherXM station is out in the mountains. There's no Wi-Fi coverage there. The downside is that you do have to visit it to update the thing on the software side. So whenever there's a software update and a push, you got to go out there to visit it because the connectivity it has is helium, and that is in general low data connectivity. So that's what's going on in WeatherXM. Let's see. I know I put down in the description. There is the build for the massive. I think it's massive. I think someone in the AI LLM world might think it's kind of small. But this GK AI mega computer or mega PC. And the idea that I had here is to play around with a private LLM and private RAG. And we talked about this in the last state of the network, where you've got this ability to have privacy. You can also remove all of the restrictions on the various kind of sometimes frustrating things that happen with an LLM when you're interacting with it. Like you ask it a question, it'll say, oh, whatever, am I pretty? And it'll be like, I can't comment on that. Is that with a private LLM, if I'm understanding it right, and this is part of what I'm excited to figure out, it will just say like, no, you're not, or whatever. It'll just answer the question. Could still be totally wrong. Could still be a total hallucination. That's the main drawback of these LLMs now. But yeah, super interesting to me to see what happens when I have access to a private LLM. I think for at least some amount of time, I'll put it as a threefold node, or what they're transitioning to as the Inca. Internet capacity. So just see how that works. And I think with a lot of this stuff, actually, here comes Joey, and I'll talk a little bit about this in a second. There you go, Joey. What's up, dog?
No,
How you doing, buddy?
I mean to leave you hanging.
No, you're good. I was just talking about this GK AI mega machine that I just bought all the parts for.
Oh yeah.
And so the thing ended up costing, and the parts list is in the description, so there's no secrets there. It ended up costing about $8,000, which is a big chunk of money for me. It's not something I just like throw around super lightly. So right. I didn't want to give the appearance of like, oh yeah, I can throw around, 8 or 10 grand whenever I want. So like, this was a decision that I looked at and I said, okay, I see this kind of AI thing happening. And what I see is there's this really wide gap between the people who know about AI and have like a deep understanding of it, and the people who are like me right now, where it's just like, well, AI is kind of magic, and I've used ChatGPT 4.0. Like that's as far as it's gone. And so I saw that there was this opportunity for me to learn myself how all this stuff works. And then hopefully it's pretty obvious to turn around and share that information as much as I can to say, hey, I bought this thing. I bought like the top end of what I think is reasonable for an individual who wants to experiment, because I didn't want to leave anything on the table. And here's what you can do with it. You can write a training plan, or you can't write a training plan. You can do your taxes, or you can't do your taxes. You can, write a chatbot, or you can't write a chatbot, or like you can, but it's really difficult, and here are the obstacles. And that way, instead of everyone having to do the same thing and all of us risking a bunch of money, it's just one person doing it and then say like, hey, this is how I think you can use it, and this is where it's super useful, and this is where it's not as useful. So that's my foray right now into AI.
One of those things stood out to me more than any of the others, which is amazing to have a chatbot do my taxes for me. That would be something.
It'd be super cool. Yeah, I think there's a lot of like, I don't know, hand wavy is the way you say like magical or things that don't yet exist, but there's like a lot of hand wavy stuff with AI, and rather than letting someone else figure it out and then having to learn from them and kind of hoping that they asked exactly the same questions I asked, I was like, I'm just going to figure this out for myself.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely have friends who came from, tech, but outside of AI stuff, and they are very much working in that space now. Like it's some of the stuff is pretty quick to pick up, and you find the right problems to solve and like put your head down and like, that's you kind of hammer your way through it. So I think that's 100% the right direction. And then of course you can always like back up one of these like decentralized compute networks in your free time or whatever.
Yeah. So that's another interesting piece is I've been working with the Threefold Inca team, and this is kind of one of the things that spurned it. I wanted one of these things for a while and just couldn't figure out a way to really justify it or see like a path to using it. And then I saw, holy smokes, doing the DePIN state. I think I talked to 2 companies just this week, and we probably have 1 or 2 more in the next week or 2 who are doing this decentralized compute, decentralized cloud, decentralized whatever, like a machine. You and I talked about this last week, where there's a split between DePIN and D everything else in.
Yeah, sure.
DePIN. And as much as I'd like to be a snob and just ignore all the non-P stuff, I also think that makes it so I miss out on learning a ton of things and miss out on a huge opportunity. And so I'm really curious to see what happens if you buy and build this thing. Can you rent it out and turn around and it's that, I don't think it is because I haven't seen it in general yet unless you get super lucky, but it's like this passive income thing, which I'm generally against because I've never seen passive income. It's always like, it turns out to be pretty damn active.
I had a neighbor be like, she had just quit her job. She was like, I want to do passive income stuff. I don't think I didn't mask my eyes rolling hard enough.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's just like I think that's exciting for you. Like,
yeah. I mean, I chased that for a long time in my maybe late 20s and mid 30s. It was just like, there's all these passive income opportunities, and I just found
it's work.
It's work. You're going to do the work anyway, so why not just call it what it is and do the work and find something that you like doing and then go do that. Totally. And then the other thing I found, and is probably true for most people watching this, is I can't fucking sit around doing nothing. Like it's just, if someone was like, hey Nick, you're going to sit in a room for the next, or you're going to sit on a beach with as many Mai Tais as you want for the next 2 weeks, or you can go work in a Soviet labor camp and be like, sign me up for labor camp.
Yeah.
I want shit to
or
do.
You'd be on the beach, like building shelters out of palm trees or something like
that.
Yeah.
Doing something.
Busy. Yeah.
So, what's your news, dude? What's new for you?
I mean, I got to test drive your Protobot a bunch, so that was.
Oh, that's right. You came in and did it a couple times. What were your reactions?
It's surprisingly fun, but also a little terrifying because there is that like just a little bit of lag. Yep. And I think one of the times like you accidentally disconnected me, and I was just like, really hope this thing's not going full speed into traffic right now because I
Yeah.
have no idea what's going on.
Yeah.
Um, but no, it's been cool to like pull that thing up and sort of show it off to folks and be like, check it out. I'm driving around in San Diego and it's like on the internet. Um, so I mean, it'll be interesting to see where that project goes. Like like it's got this really fun thing you can kind of do as like an intro layer, but um, I think it like if you were to open that thing up to the broader internet, like it definitely needs some like bumpers on there to like you got people walking dogs down that street. You don't want
Yeah.
you don't want the untrusted folks driving that thing around.
I've put out, so I think I'd put out the links originally on the open part of the GK server. I was like, oh, anyone can do this. And then I thought about it, I was like, I'm just going to put it on like a smaller subsection group where I trust those guys and girls not to basically screw that up.
Yeah.
Because I did see that, and even, well, I don't know. I think it's easy to screw things up, for everybody. Just not even thinking about it. You're like, dude, I'll rip off this one sidewalk curb, and then it, falls over and someone gets freaked out and they crash in their bike or whatever. And because you're not really thinking like, hey, I've got some kind of responsibility to take care of this, you can put both yourself and me and I guess Frodobots in a sticky spot. And I was like, I don't really want that. So for now, it's, I think, closed down to like about 50 people out of the, whatever is that, a couple hundred on the server.
Yeah. It's still a pretty big
semi-vetted.
big set.
Yeah.
Maybe you need to stake like $10,000 in order to drive the Protobot.
Yeah, it's something they've got to figure out. I mean, I know I'm talking to Michael over at Frodobots, saying, hey, Max and I would love to be consultants on this thing. We'd love to help out, build Frodobots out. We think that what we've learned and what we can bring to the table is super useful. He's not totally sure of that yet because they are going to move into being a DePIN. So I think that's, and there's tons of complexities with that, with risk, with insurance, with, how do you rent it? How do you stake some amount? And especially for a normal person, or even like a person who's, God, I shouldn't say normal, for someone anywhere in the world, right? Like if, let's say I rented one of these things from someone else and it's a $200 bot and I crashed the bot and ruined it. I wouldn't be psyched to spend $200, but like, it's $200. Like I'm not going to miss even a cup of coffee over that. But for someone else, $200 might be 50% of their income. And they're just like they were just playing a game. So I think that piece of it, like, how do you make that work? And there's some really interesting and fun things that you can do with tokenomics where you say like, hey, other people can stake for your insurance. And then there's this slashing piece that happens. There's a part that they earn for staking. Like there's all these kind of value contribution streams that can go in and out that might be a little bit complex, but could be cool.
Yeah. Yeah, tokenomics is it's a tricky subject.
Ooh, yeah.
Much respect for you guys chasing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
Speaking of,
go ahead.
Okay, take it.
Travis and I were, so one of the problems of the Frodobots is you go out of the Paleotreat store, you turn to the right, and you go down to the end of the block, and there's a street crossing. It's a busy street. It's the street's called Adams Avenue. It's one of the fancy neighborhoods in San Diego. It's super walkable. There's lots and lots of traffic on that street, and both sides of the street have a bunch of cool businesses and stuff to see. And so crossing the street for a Frotobot is a big pain in the butt. There's a crosswalk there, and if you're a human, it's super easy to reach over and push the little crosswalk button, the lights flash, and if you are a decent human, you immediately step out when the lights are flashing so that cars know that someone is in the crosswalk. This is like a pet peeve of mine, is people will hit the thing and then they'll kind of like wait to see if cars stop. And if I'm a driver, I'm just like, dude, is anyone even crossing this, or did some knucklehead hit this, or is this left over from someone who just crossed and I can't see them anymore? So Travis and I had this idea that was super fun to say, how do we get it so that the Frotobot can hit the crosswalk signal so that it can safely cross, and then it can go to either side. Now it's not perfect like a human, drivers, it's still going to be, not perfect, but way better. And Travis and I had a super fun evening, like cruising around, figuring out, okay, how do you activate these buttons without touching them? And it turns out that all of these crosswalk buttons, at least in California, and I think there's a federal mandate for this, but they have to be able to be activated by a voice for the blind, right? Because a blind person can't see where to touch the thing. And I'm sure you make all kinds of horrible jokes about that. But so they have to be able to be activated through some method other than voice. and they all appear to have either Bluetooth or Wi-Fi connections. And in fact, for the one that is down the street from me, there's supposed to be an app for it that works. So you download the app. I guess it hooks in and tells you what you're doing. So if you're blind, you can have this app. And I'm not sure I don't know how you navigate a phone if you're blind, but I'm sure there's a way.
Yeah.
And you can cruise up and hit this thing. It's like, oh, how would we make it so that we make it so the Frotobot can come in? And as the driver, this isn't in my perfect hand wavy, does not exist right now world. The driver comes up and it's like, oh, there's a crosswalk there. Hit this button, activate the crosswalk, confirm that it's activated, and then start making the crossing. That would be super useful for any Frotobot, at least in California and probably the US, if there's this federal mandate to activate these things. So kind of cool.
Yeah. Well, and like, given that it's sort of a government tier thing, there should be a spec for that kind of.
Yeah. So, and Travis did most of the work on kind of finding that stuff, because I was just like, oh, how do we hack into this? The one crosswalk near me. How do I take the cover off and like put in a new, whatever, ESP32 and pull off mains and make it so that like just this one crosswalk works. And Travis was like, no. Let's look at the docs and see how you legitimately activate it, so that I'm not going in and messing with city infrastructure.
Huh. No, I wouldn't have thought that there was some wireless. Like, you see those things, it's just a big button. So I just always assumed it was a big button. But yeah, it makes sense that there's some other stuff back there.
Yeah. So the next time you see one, look at the button and then see what there's probably a little pipe that comes out of it. At least there are in all the ones here in my neighborhood, that goes up to the top of the pole. At the top of the pole is an enclosure, and on at least one side of the street, a solar panel. And those things communicate wirelessly. So when you hit the button, the signal goes up the pipe to the enclosure, flashes across the street, so that when you hit it, they both start flashing immediately.
Okay. Yeah. Huh.
And it's ADA stuff, as Travis said. Yeah.
A couple of those things near here, so I'll have to go investigate.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this is Americans with Disabilities Act.
Oh, yeah.
Let's see. Suburban had asked, I'm deploying WeatherXM at scale. What do you think saturation? So if you just Google WeatherXM and cell capacity, Suburban, you'll see they have a blog post on this that talks about that. So yeah, WeatherXM, cell capacity, and you'll get the answer to that. Because I think
it's been exciting to see that team ramping up too.
Yeah. They're hiring. They're crushing. I had missed for a long time. They have a biweekly internal meeting that I missed for a long time because it was like 7 a.m. on a Friday. And I had another call conflicting with that. And then the other call shifted and I got to start to be at the biweeklies. It's a super fun group of people, the WeatherXM. Like, they're funny. We're all like joking with each other. And every so often they'll drop in a Greek and I'm just like, well, you lost me. But most of the time they do everything in English. And it's super cool just to see. And Joe, you probably see the same thing at the foundation stand-ups, where it's like, oh, this is kind of the inside of what's going on. Like, there's a ton of people working on a ton of different tracks. Really cool to see. So,
yeah, there's a lot of tracks. All stuff's always moving forward. So
yeah,
I definitely can relate to that.
What else is going on in your world, dude? I know you got limited time today, which is great because then we can hang up and go do some shit.
I'm doing a Twitter space in 10 minutes, so right. I'll hop over to that.
You should drop a link in here if you can.
Yeah, it's I got a link right there.
There you go. We'll drop it in and I'll put it up on the screen here. Oh, there it is.
Do it.
Copy, paste, a little copy pasta. There it is. Cool.
Yeah,
so just memorize that real quick.
Yeah. Type every character exactly.
It's in the chat.
Good luck. There's some exciting stuff going on the helium side of things. We're making some progress. I've been talking about this for ages, but interactive documentation, so you can like build a whole LoRaWAN device right inside docs. But there's a whole end-to-end proof of concept of that built now. That's in a staging site. You can actually kind of like go poke at it, which is really cool. This is HardShare, like the thing that Scott Livingston built, sort of backs this whole thing. And then
cool.
The governance that we did with the educational console is a part of it. So it's like all of these things coming together. building blocks to make this stuff happen.
Oh, that's rad. Super cool.
So yeah,
Yeah, I
speaking of
think
like cracks, like there's a long one.
yeah. Yeah. I think we're gonna see this interactive like chatbot thing explode across all these different companies, throughout the rest of this year. And that's one of the
Yeah,
things I want to explore with this private LLM is, can we do a chatbot for paleo treats, but maybe also for Gristleking. Like, I still get questions on whatever lore or anything.
yeah. There's a million things. I One of the things that I realized is we need something in our docs that just like, did this page answer your question? But that was something that Scott Livingston brought up for this content that we're working on. It's just like that needs to be on every page. So probably something we'll have to tackle as well. But
Yeah. Huh.
there's a lot of work to do on docs. Docs is like ever changing, and we need more people in there making it
Yeah.
better.
Yeah.
Um,
No, I think it's, I guess for like a normal Web 2 company, they build their instruction manual once, and I guess they must have someone who like does their instruction manual, but sometimes they just don't have one. Like there's no instruction manual that maybe there is for Google, but there's not one that I found. Like, it's a huge pain in the ass to do anything beyond search. But a
yeah,
lot of these companies don't have it. But due to the nature of the kind of things are this DePIN thing, so there's decentralization, there's crypto, there's hardware, and then B, all these people who are coming in who are not tech savvy, like there's a real requirement for clear documentation across all these projects. And I used to think it was like, oh yeah, we'll get to that. And now when we're coming into projects, like, hey, how are you guys managing your public facing documentation? Because
yeah,
that's vital.
yeah. And I think ultimately we need like dedicated staff
Yeah.
for Helium that is doing this work. It is a hard role to fill. Somebody that is a good writer, a good
Yep.
technical writer, like
Yep.
that can dive into these projects. Like it's a lot of things to check. So
Yeah.
anyway, we're always on the lookout, and you know, slash just trying to make that stuff better.
Yeah.
Um,
Did you see the
the
go ahead.
Oh well,
Yeah.
different topic, I
Yeah.
guess. But
Shoot fire.
the other thing that is starting to make some real progress is an update to Explore, which is going to really focus on coverage of gateways. So actually showing modeled coverage for every gateway on the network, um, and also giving a sense of the aggregate coverage globally. Um,
Oh, cool. Super
so
cool.
the yeah, I think big picture, this is going to be a bit of a reframing for Explore.
Okay.
In fact, like we'll probably even do a different subdomain that's like coverage.helium or something like that. Like we'll
Uh-huh.
see. Um, but we don't need to include inactive gateways. We don't need to include misasserted gateways. Like this is not like an anti-gaming thing, like any of that stuff. This is really talking about that story of like if somebody wants to come in from press, from industry, from like hobbyist, whatever, like an Amazon link that's selling an Amazon or a helium sensor,
Yep.
they should be able to look at this thing and have like a solid understanding of if it's going to work. Um, and so I actually got to last night. I was talking with a guy who's deploying some sensors on roofs in Phoenix, Arizona,
Mm-hmm.
and he's like, "Am I going to need to bring a hotspot? Like, what's the thing here?" And I was able to pull up this like beta tool and be like,
Mm-hmm.
"All right, you've got 4 hotspots that are like overlaying coverage right here. Like, you're good to go." Um,
Nice. And that, I mean, WeatherXM, when you guys do that, WeatherXM would love to see that, because that's one of the questions they get in their Discord all the time is, if I buy a helium station, will it have coverage?
yep.
And
Yeah.
there's,
I mean,
yeah, cool.
obviously, I always love for people to set up gateways as well because that's just more coverage. But
Yep.
that is not the intent of the network. Like the intent here is that people can just like you know jump on board.
Yeah. Yeah. Jump on and use it. Dude, Nick Huff, my buddy up at people know him from Helium Vision,
Mhm.
just sent me 4 boxes of sensors that he's not using. So I got 4 12-inch by, whatever, 1 foot cube boxes full of sensors and gateways. And I was like, dude, I don't know how to use all this stuff. So I think, and he was like, dude, I'm just doing other stuff right now. I've got all these extra sensors. They're not going to get deployed. Do whatever you want with them. So if anyone has education stuff that they want done with them, let me know. Reach out. And if it's in San Diego and I don't have to ship it, that's way better. But even if it isn't, and you have like some super clear use case for it, let me know. So.
Cool. Yeah. I too often have a whole bunch of sensors. So
yeah.
Same,
I'd like to see
story.
like what
I'm gonna grab the,
go ahead. Are you gonna get the Twitter link for Shane?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think there's
Foundation.
this thing it's actually kind of difficult logistically to figure out, but this idea of, and Travis has been super good about it. Like, how do you take all the hardware capacity that many of us have who've been in it for a while? It's like, oh, you bought the sensor, you tried it out, and then for whatever reason you pulled it back off because you're trying something else or you just wanted to test it. How do we get those sensors that are sitting in our closet or in a box to someone who will use them and be psyched on them? So,
yeah.
Twitter link is for spaces that Joey's about to get on.
In fact, I should probably hop and get all set up for that.
Yeah, cool.
I dropped the organization that is hosting it in the other chat. As well.
There it is. Stand by. Let me hit that. Bing. And then...
Sorry.
You'll need to add an H to the front of this.
You got most of it.
But on-chain HQ is where you want to go on X.
Yeah.
So...
cool. Well, thanks for having me on, even if it's a little bit shorter. But I'll catch you again next week, I think.
Ripping.
Right?
Thanks, Joey.
Oh, you know what? I'm going to be in Germany next week for LoRaWAN Live.
Okay.
So
maybe not.
We'll see how things go.
Yeah.
But
I may actually...
I would love to be able
to
check in.
Okay. Yeah. Live from Germany. Joey Hiller.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. All right. Take it easy.
Cool. I'm going to wrap this up. Let's see. Shane, hit me... Let's see, that you are the one asking about the sensors. Oh, no, Suburban. Any sensors that can be used in a greenhouse. I'm making smart greenhouses and would love to get some sensors. I think what I'll do today is go in and make a list of them. In fact, maybe I'll super busy, so I may have some of the folks at Paleo Treats unpack those boxes and make a list, and then I'll put that into a spreadsheet or a Google Sheet, and we'll just share that out. And I'll have like I think the way to do it is have this kind of open window of like, hey, if you want me to send you one of these things, here's the whatever shipping costs for it, and I'll send it out. And then after that, I'll probably just sell the rest on eBay or Amazon or whatever, because it's a lot of we have a small office, a lot of space to take up, and I've already got enough shit in there. Cool. All right. Yeah, I think that's all I've got. Good to see you guys today. Good to hang out. I think I'm gonna wrap this thing up and knock out some tasks that have been stacking up back here in San Diego. So super cool to see you guys, and I will catch you guys probably next week. Lights.